Welcome back to lesson 9, Seascapes. I can't believe we are already at lesson 9, and a few things terrify me in watercolor painting and drawing people. I can't do that, and seascapes. But as a good teacher, I have to expose my students to all things so that you can choose what you like, practice what you want to paint, and yes, further your own watercolor journey with some basic information on all of these things. So I'm going to try my best today, but I do want to recommend to YouTubers or Instagram or people that you can follow for some great advice on seascapes. The first one that I want to mention is Mallory Jane Art. So she's on Instagram. And I'm going to show you today how she paints a wave, which just blew my mind because it opened up how to actually do it and just open up that block that I had about painting a wave. So I want to recommend Mallory Jane. And then another person he's just like in the next level. He's absolutely amazing with painting all landscapes, seascapes, anything. I haven't seen one thing that he painted horribly, and that's Paul Clark. So I have done many of his tutorials. As I told you, I'm self-taught. So many of the things that I have learned is because I have watched endless amount of YouTube tutorials, and 90% of them were Paul Clark's. So if you really enjoy painting landscapes and seascapes, especially, go and have a look at Paul Clark, because he will probably explain it to you better than what I would today. So that's just my 2 cents on it, but let's give it a go. And your teacher is allowed to fail as well. So we're going to look at 4 different things. Let me just switch this camera on. I'm going to show you a nice way to paint rocks. Then the wave, as I said, this is one that I watched from Mallory Jane, and she just really showed it amazingly. When you're painting the beach, where do you put your shadows? Or a seascape? And then an easy way to do a shimmer, which is something that I learned from Paul Clark. Okay, so first of all, painting rocks. Now let me just see. So painting rocks is a lot of fun if you have an old credit card or you have something like a palette knife. Okay, and we'll give the palette knife a go today. So I am going to mix. I've got yellow ochre here. I just need to wet it a little bit, re-wet it. So just re-wet it and get some color there. Okay, then we have a brown here. I might just add some more to it. And then I'm just going to add a bit of black into this one. Yes, I'm a messy painter. Yes, I just mixed those colors together. There was blue in, I've added black. I like to experiment and play and just have fun. Okay. So I have 3 colors, brown, black and yellow ochre. You can use different colors if you'd like. Now to do some rocks, we're just going to dip this palette knife into the yellow ochre, do a couple of lines. Then I'm going into my black, adding some lines. You can do the lines sideways as well, and maybe adding some brown to that. Then you can do another rock. And experiment with these different colors, different color combinations. And I just like it because it doesn't look like a little block that you've painted. So especially if you're doing something like a lighthouse on rocks, this is a lovely way to do it. And you can always go back once this is dry and just add some darker tones to it, or add some highlights to it, or whatever it is you wish. You can also add some color directly from your palette if you want some darker ones. So all that I'm doing is I'm just using this little tip of my palette knife, scraping it on there a little bit, and just putting that down, so it will give you some darker areas. Scrape that color out. Add some texture. How awesome is that? Love it. Okay. Now next is the wave, and this is what I've learned from Instagram. Okay, so what Mallory Jane said is when you are painting a wave, think of a cylinder shape. So let's draw a cylinder. Is that how you say it? You guys will tell me on Tuesday in class. Okay. So let me just show, can you see that? So we've got a cylinder shape over there, and let's say, so I'm just going up into it a little bit. Okay, so let's say we have a wave coming, so I'm going to just ease that one out a little bit so it's not got a sharp point. And then we normally have nice lots of foam starting to develop. So there goes my foam. Now normally I wouldn't draw it this dark, obviously. You can have a nice splat over here. Even if you want to do some rocks, maybe. Let's do some rocks while we're at it. It's going to give a nice splatter maybe. So I'm just going to erase this bottom part of the cylinder. So you just use that as a basic shape to work from. And then while I have these colors, I'm going to put a sea rock over here. Let me see if you can see that. Yep. Okay, so just do a little bit of that yellow. Okay. So this this wave is going to crash into this rock. So I want to just add some texture there. Okay. And now we can paint our wave. Let me just go back here. So your wave is going to be, you'll have some white foam maybe there as well. Okay. So your horizon line might be there. You might have some smaller waves in the distance. So this you can always use masking fluid to, you know, keep those areas white if you'd like. And then you're going to have some water here, and you might have some beach here in the front. Okay. So your darkest area for your wave will be underneath the wave over here. So we want to use a lot of dry brush in this as well. So let's put our darkest shade here. Just going to use some dry brush. You might want to do a bit of a beach here in the front. And try to keep those whites. So. Okay, then we are going to our horizon line, and we want to keep this light as well and soft so that you can see the contrast in your wave eventually. I'm just going to go to my horizon line. So you want to keep some white spaces in your ocean. So just want to clean my brush, not have that. So I don't want like a really harsh line here. I know I drew one, but just want it to be a bit softer. Okay, now this will be where the wave turns and where you're going to have a bit of a highlight as well. So we can just put that in. Keep that white line for a highlight. Do it a little bit darker at the back. And then I just want to make this part a little bit darker as well. Okay, so your shadows is going to be just underneath here. We can do add some shadows into our water. We can have a bit more of a shadow this way. Underneath there. Okay. And then for your wave, clean your brush. We're just going to add some shadows into this wave. So to add shadows, you can use just a different darker color. Drop some of that in. And then just lighten it again. And then of course you can use white, you can do splatters, you can, you know, if you have like a white gouache that you want to use, if you want to add a few highlights, either with a white pencil or with a white pen. Do a line there. Whatever you wish. Okay, something in those lines. So just think of that cylinder shape. It's obviously a bit too perfect. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm so terrible at this. Okay, anyway, shadows. So if you have your horizon line, and you have some distant waves. As they come more forward, they will be larger. You might have some beach area as well. So let's first do the beach area. So there's my beach. Now when painting the ocean, dry brush, that's what you want to use most of the time. Let's just soften this beach again. Okay. Now I'm going to do my ocean at the back. So first there, I'm not going to put in lots of white. Just a very thin line. Just lift some of that as well. Okay. Next layer, leave a very thin line to give the idea of just waves rolling in. Okay. Next one, we leave a bit of white open again. And this white area can become a bit larger as you come forward. And then we'll do this one. Now, if you're doing a large image, you can use lots of dry brush, which will add to that technique. But now we just want to know where to put our shadow. So you're always going to have a shadow underneath your where your waves are crashing. So first I like to just darken my horizon line always and blend that in with a bit of dry brush. So I'm using a smaller brush now so that I can add a bit of texture here. And then going to the next one. So underneath where that little wave will be, it's still very much in the distance, so we can use a bit of dry brush texture, which will just make it look like a couple of waves, or what you call it, ripples, that's the word I'm looking for. Okay, next one. So basically doing the same thing, it's adding a bit of shadow underneath that rolling wave and adding a bit of ripples with a dry brush. And next one, now these shadows can become larger as you come more forward. This one is still quite wet, so it's making a nice large shadow. And then we just continue doing that all the way to the front. And you can blend these into your wave with just a bit of like water on your brush, and just soften that line a little bit if you want to blend it a bit more. Okay, and then our very first wave. It can be a bit thicker in some spots and then a bit thinner in others. and then we can just blend that out. And then add a shadow on your beach. So this one I like to do just with a dark brown. And I'm just going to add it underneath my wave. Again, make it a bit thicker in some parts and thinner in others. Now you can also blend this one out or just add a bit of texture with dry brush in your sand. So a little bit of that color, just adding a bit of shadows. Okay, so that's my favorite way to paint a beach, because that's one I can do. All right, but that's how we learn, isn't it? We learn through practice, 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 practice. Now, one of the things that Paul Clark also does is he has a video on rocks and on how to create that splatter, like I've done here, the rocks going into it. But he's also got a great idea, and he uses the same technique to do it, the one I'm going to show you now, but he also has a really great technique to show a shimmer on the water or a splatter, or so you can use it for various things. So I'm just going to paint water because I want to show you how to do a shimmer. You know, when the sun is just glistening on the water and it's making it look like glitter. So I'm just painting this blue area. Now you can imagine if you have the sun here at the top and you've got this blue. Now I just need to dry it first before I can show you. Okay, now you have your water, you've got the sun here at the top, and it's creating a nice shimmer on your water. So I'm using a trusty old, I don't know what you call this, palette knife, I don't know what it is. In any case, so Paul Clark does the same thing, like here when he wants to create a splatter in the waves, or he wants to create some ripples. So all that you do is you basically score your paper a little bit, or you damage your paint, you scrape off your paint a little bit. So let's say you have your reflection of the sun coming in here, we just scrape it. So this adds some texture to it. It doesn't just look like a line that you've drawn. There you have it. Just some glitter on your water. So let's say you forgot to keep this area white, and you just want to add some nice little shimmers. it does damage your paper, so you don't want to go and paint over that again, because that will definitely, the paint will just soak into that damage and you won't be able to fix anything from that. So just be mindful of where you do it. Okay. All right, now we can combine all of these things in one picture, and I think we'll do that in class. So have some fun with these techniques, practice them separately first, and then see if you want to combine them into one thing. Maybe you have an unknown talent for seascapes, and then you've just realized what you really like to paint. So don't do something because it scares you, don't not do something because it scares you or you're unsure. Still try it, and if you like it, get better at it. Practice, practice, practice. So, okay, I'll see you guys Tuesday in class for seascapes, where we'll look at some of these elements and then put them together for a painting. Enjoy your weekend.